Hello, candle lovers. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Greg, and this is all about candles. I'm your self-proclaimed Canadian candle connoisseur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Weekly Wax Wrap-Up. This is a really quick breakdown of all of the candles that I finished burning this week, what I thought of the fragrances, and how they performed. Let's just get right into it. First up, I finished off an Enchanted candy potion. This is from Bath & Body Works like 2 or 3 years ago, I think. I thought that they really nailed this packaging. This candle looked really cool when it was burning. It had a bit of a sort of stained glass effect to it. Now, out of all of the like sugary, fruity florals that BBW releases for Halloween, Ghoul Friend, Vampire Blood, this one is my favorite. This is the one that I can really get behind. I think it's a bit of a shame that they haven't released it for the last couple of years. I'm not sure why, because I do feel like it's been fairly popular, but anyways, the scent notes on it are spellbinding sugar, bewitched berries, and whipped pixie dust. That really like gives us nothing to work with. It's kind of like, it really is in the vein of like a Ghoul Friend, but there is something about this candle that makes it a little bit more interesting to me than the usual Bath & Body Works Halloween fare. It's actually quite a well-balanced and three-dimensional fragrance. On the top, I get something quite citrusy and zesty, and there's a very sort of like sweet, granulated sugar type of vibe. This is a very sweet candle, but for me, it doesn't like teeter into the sweetness territory of like Vampire Blood or Ghoul Friend. Something about the zestiness of this candle kind of like evens it out a little bit more for me. And the base note in this is just a really nice, smooth, like vanilla. What do they call it? Whipped pixie dust. Bewitched berries. I'd say that berry, it's kind of like that classic like Bath & Body Works berry blend of like strawberry, raspberry, blueberry. And something citrusy on top and a super smooth vanilla on the bottom. Overall, I quite like this fragrance actually, even though it's not something that's like typically on brand for my tastes. But I do like this one. Something about the vibe of this candle too probably makes me appreciate the fragrance a little bit more. I just love the way that this one looked when it was burning, and it was a really nice clean burn. I burned it all the way down until the whole thing had liquefied. At the very end, it was starting to dud out a little bit. But I was perfectly happy calling it a day. I feel like most of the fragrance oils had left the candle anyway at this point. Pretty clean burn. That wax is still looking nice and white. This had like thick ropey wicks on it. And yeah, it was a really great burn up until the very end of it, which is pretty common for a lot of Bath & Body Works candles. I'd say that the strength and throw on this was about a 6.5, and that is in my more open area. I'd say it definitely had a presence to it. That sort of like sweet, sugary zestiness really did project more than I thought it would after smelling it on cold. And I like this candle a fair bit. I hope it comes back next year. I really, really do. Enchanted Candy Potion. Not bad at all. Not life-changing, but not bad. Now, this candle was a little bit of a heartbreaker for me. This is White Pumpkin Oakwood from Bath & Body Works. And I bought this for the first time a couple of years ago. So this is a fairly old version of White Pumpkin Oakwood. I like this fragrance more than the straightforward White Pumpkin candle that they do, which is basically, to my nose, just a chai candle. The scent notes on this are fresh picked white pumpkin, smooth sandalwood, and spiced pear. Now that pear note, I really do not get. This is basically the white pumpkin fragrance note, balanced out a little bit more nicely with like some sandalwood, and I feel like I also pick up on cedarwood in here, which isn't listed. But yeah, it's a chai woodsy candle. And I really, really like this fragrance. I probably will give it another try, but I have to tell you guys that this candle performed horribly. I mean, I did actually get all the way down to the bottom, and it was a fairly clean burn, but this was just dud out city. I mean, I think that even on the first or second burn, it was like underperforming and dudding out in a pretty bad way, and it just stayed like that for its entire life. If I had known that it was never gonna pick up any steam at all, at a certain point I would have eventually lamped it or crocked it, but you know how sometimes you just kind of feel like you need to see something through? But because it was such an underperformer with the wicks, I'd say that the strength and throw maxed out on this at like a 4.5. Which for me is a failing grade. I enjoyed smelling this candle on cold way more than trying to smell it when it was burning. It was just not firing the way that it was supposed to, and the strength and throw really suffered because of that. I would be super interested to know if anyone has burned a more recent version of White Pumpkin Oakwood. Could you let me know in the comments if it like dudded out, if it performed okay? Because this one was a bit of a disaster. I also finished up Witch's Cauldron from Goose Creek. I really liked this one, folks. This Halloween collection from Goose Creek had some good ones. I really liked this one. I really liked Graveyard Ghosts, and I really liked Black Cat. Black Cat was my favorite. I think Black Cat might be one of my favorite Goose Creek candles now. Witch's Cauldron was good too. The scent notes are Witch's Brew, Dark Fog, Patchouli, Woods, and Soft Anise. Now, I'm gonna say first and foremost that this is a pretty top-heavy patchouli candle. So if you're not into that pungent patchouli, this would definitely not be for you. However, I do think it's balanced quite nicely, and it's not too overwhelming. It was a very strong candle, but it wasn't so much so that it was like unbearable, at least for me. It was really nice and strong. And yeah, first and foremost, you pick up on that patchouli. And that patchouli is ranging quite high. And then in the midsection, you definitely have like a woodsiness. I'd say more of a cedar wood than anything. What do they list? All they say is woods. To me, this is coming across as a cedar. And then the base of this is very, very, very musky. And you do pick up, what I think makes this candle kind of neat and unique is you do pick up on a little bit of a licoricey vibe from that anise. It's not a super strong licorice vibe. This isn't a licorice candle, but there is something a little bit like tart and sweet and almost a little bit sour and licoricey about it. And obviously that's coming from the anise. I think this is really neat, really interesting, really good Halloween candle. I really like Halloween candles that have sort of a spooky and dark vibe to it without being too gross. And this definitely is that. Yeah, Witch's Cauldron by Goose Creek. I liked this one quite a bit. It performed really well too, you guys. Oh my goodness. That wax still looks very clean. Towards the bottom, I did end up with a bit of discoloration and sootiness in there, but not until about the last third of the candle. Really had to keep an eye on it at the last third. I could only let it burn for about an hour before it started to get kind of weird towards the end of this candle's life. And so you had to blow it out, let it cool, trim the wicks, give it another go. Eventually the whole thing liquefied and I decided to call it a day. The strength and throw on this was good, like a 7.5 in my more open area. I had it in the bedroom for a while and it was like an 8 in there for sure. This candle had a presence about it. That witch was that witch was there. Yeah, I liked Witch's Cauldron quite a bit. I also finished up Handbook for the Recently Deceased by Goose Creek, and this is their Beetlejuice collaboration. I really liked the design on this candle. It looked super funky and cool when it was burning. I really liked the Beetlejuice candles from Goose Creek, you guys. I haven't got around to finishing all of them, but what I've finished so far, I've really, really liked. The scent notes on this are vintage leather binding, aged paper, and dusty cedar wood. And yeah, I mean, it totally smells like an old library book, and I love the smell of old library books. I really do. I'd say that overall this is like a leather and cedar candle. You know, the wood note comes across to me kind of like a dusty like wood chip note. Like I remember I used to always have like a mouse or a hamster when I was really young, and like the cedar shavings that we would put in the cage. This smells kind of like those cedar wood shavings, like a very dry, almost dusty sort of woodsy note. And you know that I love a leather scent note, and the leather in this is really quite present and really, really nice. I actually find something about this candle a little bit sexy. I like this one a lot. Yeah, Handbook for the Recently Deceased performed very well for a Goose Creek candle. Towards the end there, it definitely started to get a little bit murky and sooty right at the very end. I'm at about this point now. And so once the entire thing had liquefied, I kind of just called it a day because I was pretty happy with how the first 3/4 of it performed. I'd say that the strength in the throw on this one was a very solid 7, and that was in my more open area. I think I only ever burned it in my more open space, and yeah, it was pretty consistently a 7. Pooled out quickly, smelled quickly. Yeah, it was a good one. I really enjoyed that one. Yeah. Handbook for the Recently Deceased, Goose Creek and Beetlejuice. Okay, I also finished up this Crystal Pumpkin from DW Home, which I actually ended up really enjoying. I mean, this collection of candles, I actually enjoyed all 3 of them. There was also Storybook Pumpkin, Crystal Pumpkin, Magical Pumpkin. This one's Crystal Pumpkin. Magical Pumpkin, I think, was my favorite. That was actually like a really sort of dark, weird lavender candle. I think these were really mismarketed, particularly this one. This one, I'm not picking up any sort of pumpkin or pumpkin spice from at all. This is a 15-ounce candle with 2 wicks and a 56-hour burn time. I've said for quite a while now that the only luck I've really had with DW candles are their larger 2-wick candles. If you're gonna get any performance out of a DW candle, in my experience, it's always this larger like 2-wick format that end up performing all right. The scent notes on Crystal Pumpkin are white pumpkin, bitter orange, black pepper, ambered myrrh, ginger spiced pumpkin, warm nutmeg, cinnamon, rich woods, and velvet suede. Now, I take issue with these scent notes. I do not pick up on pumpkin at all. I don't pick up on nutmeg at all. I don't pick up on cinnamon at all. To me, this is like a peppery, zesty amber candle. Yeah, I feel like it's amber first and foremost. There's a really nice, interesting kind of peppery note to it. It ranges in like the mid to high sort of area. Absolutely not a trace of like kitchen spice or pumpkin spice in this at all. The bottom of this, the base of this fragrance is very, very, very like woodsy and a little bit musky. But mostly I'd say that this is kind of a zesty, citrusy amber candle. I don't know what they could have called this, but for me, this is not like a fall candle. This is a Halloween candle, and it evokes like a spooky, scary, outdoorsy sort of graveyard situation. It's that peppery note in there. Yeah. Performance-wise, it did pretty well. I burned this thing all the way down until like the wick nickels. You can see the wick nickels there, even though there's some wax left in here. I would say that the strength and throw was probably, it was a very solid 6, and some burns were a 6.5. I kept this candle pretty much always in a hurricane. In a hurricane, it got up to a 6.5. Surprisingly good performance for a DW candle, and also a surprisingly nice, clean burn. It didn't take forever to pool out. I got all the way down to the bottom. There is like no soot or blackness or discoloration on this jar. The end of the wax there is a little bit discolored, but that's just kind of because I think I rode it until the wheels fell off. I mean, there is nothing left there. So, you know, that the darkness that you see here is not indicative of what the candle was like when I was burning it. The wax always seemed really nice and clean and white the entire time I had it. And it's a really interesting fragrance. I don't think it would be a repurchase for me, but if you're out and about and you see this in like a Winners or a Marshalls or something at like a deep discount, if you smell it and you like the fragrance and you have a hurricane at home, you might end up actually really liking this candle. All right, last but not least, this was my favorite Halloween candle that I burned this year. It wasn't my first time burning it, but this Halloween season, this is a candle that I was reaching for the most, and it is Ghost Cemetery by Village Candle. Village candles are a little bit unique. I really do like these large apothecary jars. They're 21.25 ounces with 2 wicks. That wax got quite discolored because, as you can see, I also burnt this candle until there was nothing left in there. I probably let it go on a little bit longer than I should have, but originally it was a really beautiful, like pure white wax. Oh my goodness, I really love this fragrance. So the scent notes for Ghost Cemetery are, on top you have incense, cinnamon, fir needles, and black pepper. The mid notes are coconut, clove, and coffee. And then the base notes are tonka, vanilla, white musk, sandalwood, cedarwood, and patchouli. There is a lot going on in this candle, but it's really nicely balanced and I absolutely loved it. On the top, first and foremost, you're absolutely picking up on like a sort of incensey, pine needle, balsamy scent note. And it's quite peppery as well up on top. And then in the mid-range of this candle, you're getting something a little bit like creamier and softer. I'm not sure that I would pick out coconut and coffee from this candle, but having read the scent notes and then getting my nose on it, I do kind of see where they're going with that. There's sort of a sweet creaminess. There's sort of a sweet creaminess in here that absolutely picks up and reads a little bit like coconut, and maybe a touch of like a touch of a coffee note, but mostly I get like a coconut and clove sort of vibe. But what I really love about this candle is the bottom note is like this really smooth, rich tonka note. And it's not just like a vanilla masquerading as tonka. It's like an actual tonka fragrance. Oh, so lovely, so well balanced. It's spooky and ghosty, but also lovely, which is really like the sweet spot for me with Halloween candles. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. It was my favorite Halloween candle that I was burning this year. Strength and throw, you gotta manage your expectations with Village candles. I would say I mostly had this burning fairly close to me, like sitting on my desk in a smaller space. It got up to a good 6.5. Despite what you see with the discoloration of the wax there, this was actually an extremely clean burn. The wax actually stayed really nice and bright and white up until the very end of the candle. And as you can see, there's very little like soot and jar discoloration on there. It was a pretty nice clean burn. And I believe that these Village candles are 100% paraffin wax as well. These burn for up to 170 hours. I actually started burning this last fall and then like put it away in November and then brought it out again this September to finish it off. Yeah, strength and throw is about a 6.5. You have to be patient with Village candles in this format. Some of the burns are better than others. For the most part, once you get into the meaty, sort of like mid-range of the candle, the burns do become more consistent. It starts pooling out in a good amount of time and projecting up to that 6.5. Now, like I said, this 6.5, I'm saying that that was in a smaller space. I'd say that in my bedroom, it was about a 6, and I didn't really try burning this much in an open concept. I think that in an open concept, it would definitely get fairly lost. So, you know, that's kind of the thing about candles. You kind of have to know when to burn them, how to burn them, what you want from the candle, what kind of a space it's going to be in. I really like having Village candles on my desk because I can let them burn for like 4, 5, 6 hours and they do perfectly fine fine. I find that they do really, really well in a hurricane. But yeah, no, I don't recommend Village candles to just like put in the middle of your open concept and hoping that it's gonna fill your space up. That's just not going to happen. Manage your expectations, but for the way that I burned this candle, I got out of it what I wanted. Yeah, I really, really like this one. This would be a repurchase for me. I'm absolutely gonna get another one before next October, and I would recommend it, you know, with the caveat of like, it is definitely a unique, interesting, kind of funky fragrance, and you're gonna get about a 6.5 out of it most of the time in smaller to medium spaces. But it's one of those candles that I like the fragrance so much that I'm kind of just willing to accommodate it. You know what I mean? I'll burn it in my tiny bathroom if I have to. Oh, yeah, I really like this one. Ghost Cemetery by Village Candle. That's all I have for you folks today. Thank you so much for joining me for the Weekly Wax wrap-up this week. This video is actually pre-recorded. I am in Vancouver right now, living my best life with my friend Teddy. Our plans are to just go to the Roshan Murphy concert, see some drag shows, eat some seafood, and go to the spa. We're just enjoying ourselves. I'm going to be back recording live videos on Wednesday. I hope you all have had a wonderful weekend, and I hope you've got a great week ahead of you. Until next time, my gorgeous, dear, and beautiful candle-loving friends, let's burn some candles and bitch about it. Thanks, folks. Bye now.